Alrighty, daily trading recap for this Friday, the 25th of March, 2022. To Christ be the glory. As always, market dollar volume on the day pretty low and unsubstantial. Nasdaq $226 billion volume. We are to just about 3 hours after close here now. NYSE $284 billion volume. OTC is $2.1 billion volume. Of course, it was a pretty volatile morning session around that opening price for the overall market of SPY itself. I think this was equated to like 5 points above-ish and a little maybe just under 10 to the downside there within the first half hour, 45 minutes. And of course, not even a full trend day, just totally Willy Wonka, undecided which way it wants to go for today. That is kind of the typical Friday. And in my knowledge and continual acquisition of familiarity with these types of plays and Fridays, did not even think till just after the close now, as I'm doing more research as I'm doing the recollection of the day of, I was not even in the thought process of trying to play a spread volatility trade because it was today Friday, or trying to do the getting both long and short at the same time and trying to play both above and below. I forget if I did that last Friday, but I don't know why I just kind of blew that out of the window. But yes, certainly would have been pretty beautiful. Could have pulled 10 easy points. I say easy. Having to sit through that certainly would have been an experience in itself. But still took 2 ES contracts. I would have been interested to see, and even thinking about it now, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that with the margin that I did have today. So that's why I was holding off of going on 3 full-size ES contracts, even though I did go with 2, stepping into the 930, just looking for that 2 points above the open price there, and scoring that in and getting a nice little, again, easy repeatable profit that's been happening the last 100 days as a repeatable profit. Within the first half hour of market open, that price will hit 2 points above relative to that open price where we open with a nice hit rate there. And even on the days that it doesn't, still factors into the hit rate and the cumulative wins of the day that it is still a net profitable trade on the all-time scale. All the data that I have back to 2012. So that was a little 930 strategy. And even that little strategy itself, I mentioned, again, for reference of, it was just very, from coming off of yesterday that we didn't get there, I was very, not so much haywire, but that's the only word that's coming to my mind, of watching it very closely and just making sure that it wasn't going against me hard and keeping my eye hard on the intraday margin left, because it was only going to be 10 points, and I only say 10 points, but yeah, for what it did yesterday too. Just making sure, watching it, because I know the probability is there and I know it could happen, but if it should start to go like it did yesterday, hard one way to the downside, which I was long for today, if it goes hard to the downside and just starts to eventually find a base and then work up, that's going to be just so screwy for the small account that I have and work against that strategy. But that is the market. But sure enough, luckily it did happen in the second minute there, and it was just a little bit weird. I think I cut myself short of maybe half of a point on one of the contracts because it was, and I don't know why, the orders that I had in, how it was submitted for the strategy, the automated strategy, that I was trying to over manipulate it, override it. But seeing that it was showing on my P&L, hey, you're up, like seeing it tick to 2 points, but then not getting filled. And I couldn't even fathom that we would even be at that price of 2 points above my entry point, and it wouldn't have filled me for how early that I have submitted these orders and how quick they're in. It just didn't compute that price would be moving there and it wouldn't fill me. So for how I took it, that I overly manurowed it. That's the right past tense there. And it just took the consequences of whatever that was. So learning lessons all around, but yet again, another strategy that worked out for that day. But it's, glad of a stepping stone again of coming off of yesterday and for how that ended up playing out, and to being able to do that today was certainly a advancement in my career and personally as well, just to be able to do that. Did also take a little daily strategy setup again for the ES full session, getting along at the open, this time just going with one MES contract and playing out this strategy on the MES side versus the ES side, and the potential huge downside that can just wipe out my account with. Even though it's very nice to see when that hit rate is there and the wins start to come in at $500 a day, that it continues to build up. The one time that loss does come, that's been back tested and factored into the strategy for the account size that I have now on that futures account. It's just unfortunate, the luck of the draw, what comes to the timing of when I start that strategy or when it does come before I get more of a stockpile in that account to be able to take those blows. But so I'll be going with the MES strategy there on those, just to play it safe and play with the account size that I have on that micro futures offering there. Not a lot of overall chatter in the chat room today. I think a lot of other guys were probably taking the morning off, and good on them too. Not a lot moving on the scanner other than a lot of marijuana tickers popping off. I think because we got a House of Representatives considering potentially to put a bill across to decriminalize marijuana. I think that was a few days ago. So a lot of the marijuana tickers moving based off of that. But then, just not a lot of first green day movers today, which I don't normally expect on Fridays, and just not a lot of overall crazy chat in the chat room. Had some ideas. I think I'll go into, start off with CELZ, which was going to be my main focus, but didn't trade it because just volume wasn't there and any price opportunity wasn't there in the morning session. We did, over intraday, price certainly did offer the opportunity of percentage point that I want to see of where it moved, of taking it anywhere from 308 to above 34. Beautiful little trade, but just very slow, non-explosive, and not in that morning session that I want to see that type of just shorts being squeezed type of squeezy action there for price. Happened, but it didn't really happen. So to say that even I'm keeping my eye on this one over the next few days, I just doubt it. That was CELZ. Ticker I did trade was NILE. Awesome opportunity on this one, and very glad that I had the open enough perspective to still trade this chart and keep it up amidst all of the other tickers that I was just looking into and trying to put in the little research and dilution tracking and all the prep work into keeping that open mind and saying, where is the free money going to be collected today? Not a routine type of trade. What is this, the fifth day after that first green day that it had? A little bit of a higher float. If my memory serves me correctly, it's American power solution system for the military, aerospace, medical, and industrial telecommunication industry in North America, Europe, and the Middle East, and internationally, blah, 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 whatever that means. I forget the news catalyst specifically for that first day as well. I think they also had it. Some of their subsidiary companies was going to be acquired, blah, 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 blah. A little bit of EV news catalyst in there as well. But regardless, price is always king, and that's what I factored in on this trade. Keeping in mind that it was going to be a little bit of a higher float, and that's why I took it a little bit smaller of a size. I mentioned here in my journal that around 9:48, before I go into the specifics of the trade, 9:48, I was just where was that? Right here in this price point, as it recovered, trying to break to the downside of VWAP, that I would have been absolutely loading the boat if this was a lower float. Because it was a Friday, because it would have been a low float, I would have been loading the boat on this trade, just because the price was holding too cleanly for me to say otherwise. And this key level that I developed then as the potential risk was this 8.2 range, where top ticked yesterday, top tick here on this Tuesday as well. And you can say on this first green day had some amount of sketchy little resistance point or support points there on that first green day. So maybe using that as not a set in stone hard factor, but some points have obviously been bouncing off there. So maybe that has a little bit of weight coming into today. Getting long initially on the first little dip and hold of VWAP, sizing in again as it was testing to new highs. Goes to new highs, but pulls back. It fails to really continue off of there, but not looking weak or hard off of that, so sizing in with another. I think all four of these entries, 3 of them were 100 shares and one of them was 200. I think the 200 was this one, of just kind of protecting a little bit of getting at least a decent enough size of 300 shares if it did just start to immediately go from there and offer no more pullbacks, but sure enough it did. And again, like I mentioned, this 948 area right in this little key spot. I'll zoom out the correct perspective that I like to see. Get a little circle of, gosh, that was the point for me of, man, if this was a little bit lower floater, that's the only reason that was holding me back of putting $1,000 size minimum position on this trade and just letting it, obviously risking low of day there. Should it start to fail off? I think it was certainly probable, but should it start to catch a few bids that it could step up in price like this, and sure enough it did. Getting some CELZ volume profile resistance I found on scans to be around 90 cents as one level, and then obviously the whole dollar level, using that as an attraction magnetic point to be selling into or looking as that main profit target. Selling into first in that 90 cent area that it did have a little pullback, the hardest pullback of the whole run up there, 2 red minute candles after that move there to 90. Continues to go and rip, and I still got, I think that was only 100 shares I took off into there, another 50. By this final sell here that finally got me out, I had 250 shares left, a half the position left. So I was only scaling out another 100 shares and then 50 shares relative around 97 for the top, I think was my best sell. Giving it plenty, as much room as it wanted to pull back. And just with every fiber in me saying, let this pull back even more, let it pull back more, let it pull back more, of just my urge. And I kind of randomly, I forget what I was checking my account, my monitoring account, to check something else, and then of course saw the open P&L, and it's like 40-50 bucks, whatever, and then that temptation creeps in of, oh, okay, that's it's not crazy, of course, but it's, nice little profit, that's 50 bucks, and then just like knowing that as we're printing red, oh, that's slipping away, that stupid little goblin villain that creeps up in your head, but fighting against that, as that is one of my rules of trade the trade, not the P&L, focusing on this hard to think, man, this thing is pulling back a lot, but it's, for how many times have I been in this type of situation that, oh man, this thing is pulling back so hard and exiting at the pert near bottom of that candle that it just, everybody else and their grandma was also risking that spot, or that was just the point of, okay, I can't take it anymore, and then sure enough, it reverses off that. Trying to fight against that so much, it's pretty much what it exactly did, of just letting it continue to go and go and go and go. Everything that I was trying to avoid, that's essentially what it became. But even if I did and was so much more gung-ho with these last half a position that I had, and was continuing to just risk and let it go and break not only VWAP, but whatever my entry price was, that was still a little bit above my entry, but I forget the arbitrator level of 87. I said, oh, that was the line that I was drawing on. No. What am I talking about? Whatever line I drew there at that point of saying, okay, now that's bid. In the moment of, okay, not only is that VWAP, and we also got this 87 level here that was breaking on the bid. I think I factored that in as well, if my memory serves me correctly. That was the freaking point. That was just, okay, that's just way too much. I got to push the button. Sure enough, it recovers immediately off of that and then just continues to dump. So even if I was so much more gung-ho with it, I would have definitely been stopped out as it broke that low here in this candle. And then even if another level on top of that, even if I was even more gung-ho and just continue to let it ride, and it breaks to a new low here in this 1059 candle, I definitely would have gotten stopped out in that candle as it broke to a new low off of there. So there's just, I can kick myself to say, gosh, I kind of bottom ticked it almost for the exit, of just how stupid it was. I did not want to do that whatsoever, but it didn't offer really any opportunity. It was just a pure straight up and pure straight down, and that's not what I was going for with the trade. I was looking for a minimum. I was keeping that half a size on for $1 and above, of to be selling into that as a potential profit target, but looking for, obviously knowing that that is a very quick slope to be just looking to reach $1 from here. It's Friday and there's not a lot of else moving. This was one of the leading tickers, so crazier things have happened, but yeah, just to see it pull back so hard in such a quick, short amount of time compared to how it moved up in price. Yeah, just was not part of the preparation plan, but reacting to it and cutting it as it showed that it was certainly dying and dead, and not crying over lost milk, spilt milk, just taking it as it is and adding it to the chart collection memory database and moving on to the next one. So beautiful opportunity there. Still was able to take 7.5% out of it for the pretty awesome potential out of there that was. And yeah, I thought I was going to be taking a lot more, but that is how the cookie crumbles on that one. Great learning experience and great chart gathering data information. Was also able to get the time and sales level 2 screenplay recorded of this one today too, so that would be a fun one to watch and review for both the upside and the downside on that big spike move there on NILE. I can grant myself A+ idea for the chart that actually showed today for the type of consolidation that it had in the first little 15-30 minutes of market open here, and for that big spike move that it had. That's got to be an A+. Not so much a setup or a playbook pattern. This certainly isn't a playbook trade by any means, but it's just recognizing the potential factors that are there and learning off of that opportunity. I got to give it an A+ for that. Execution-wise, like I mentioned, I can't knock myself. It wasn't terrible entries by any means. It wasn't terrible exits by any means. I can't knock myself on any of those factors, but just of how, unfortunately, it ended up of how hard a pullback it was, and covering near the bottom of this little wiki VWAP candle. I kind of got to give myself a B. I can't give myself an A or an A+ even for only taking a 7.5% profit for how much this total move actually was. But yeah, it certainly wasn't laughable. It certainly wasn't below a C or below a D grade execution-wise there. That is trading, and it's not going to be perfect, but that's why we get after it every single day, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to do so. That's really all I want to mention. That was the only trade I had on the day other than the futures. trades I had there, I just wanted to mention NRSN and MULN quickly for nice pullback days. 12%, 13% in the red on NRSN. These were the shorting days. That thought ran across my mind in pre-market that, gosh, I kind of should be watching these ones for shorting. But then also just that bias a little bit of, they could get squirrely. If they start to catch a bid, they could just ignite with fire and blow up like a rocket. MULN, the same thing of 21% in the red that it was showing today. Just huge fall off after the failure to maintain that price around this little, call it a little bit of a wedge, bit of a wider wedge, but today was certainly, for how pre-market opened on MULN specifically as well, huge little sell-off there. So definitely opportunity to the short side and in the morning session for sure. And I think even Art of War was trying to dip by this one earlier than this little panic here, which may have even added, I don't know if specifically off of him, but that same mentality of other type of traders trying to do the same thing of, call it a first green day or call it just playing a dip by bounce. Getting caught in that, that's obviously where a huge amount of volume was produced and showcased by the biggest volume candle on the day in that specific reversal candle there for the bottom of that little dip at MULN. That was all that I had on the day. Sincerely thankful for the opportunity to be in front of the screen, to have one of the greatest jobs in the world and continuing to get after it day by day. I thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.